Hey business warriors, welcome to the show. And you've probably seen the video by now. Graham Stephan, probably the biggest YouTuber in the personal finance niche, came out with a video on why he is leaving California.
Well, this is certainly not the video I was expecting to make, but it is official. I am moving out of California.
To be honest, this isn't a surprise. I, assumed that he would probably leave sooner or later. The taxes in California are insanely high. And actually in California, you have some pretty good options that are really close by. Nevada, Las Vegas is only about a 4-hour drive away. You could also move to Arizona, etc., or up to Seattle, Washington. That's a bit further, but still on the West Coast. Then Kevin came out with a video talking about why he's not leaving California, but he still recognized that the taxes there are insanely high, and also the sort of lawlessness and homelessness as well in some of the cities. Just the way it's being run is pretty terrible for them there at the moment. I can't really comment on that because I'm not there, I haven't really seen it. But it made me think about my own location of New York and whether I'm paying too much tax as I build up my personal wealth. Now, New York State does have the highest tax burden in the country. When you add up all of the different taxes, state income tax, state sales tax, and also state property taxes. And then if you live in New York City, there's actually a New York City income tax on top of all the other taxes you have to pay. And we'll get to that later. Now, you guys may know that I'm not in New York City anymore. I'm actually in upstate New York, about an hour and a half away from the city, but I still have business dealings in the city. And for me, that triggers some of the New York City taxes. Okay, I'm going to tell you all about that a little bit later in the video. But first of all, let's talk in general about what a terrible deal you get in New York City. Then we'll go for New York State, and then right at the end, we'll talk about whether I'm considering leaving or not. All right, so I'm gonna give you 4 points, and my first point is that New York City does not recognize S Corp status, okay, for corporations and LLCs. Now, this is something that's only gonna affect business owners, small business owners, but probably a lot of the people watching this channel, I mean, it's called the Business Shifu, so yeah. Anyway, probably a lot of you are entrepreneurs and business owners. So an S Corp, what it is most people, they start an LLC when they go into business, right? And once they reach the stage that their LLC can pay a stable income that doesn't fluctuate too much, they will transition to an S Corp, and they will pay themselves a moderate income, and then any extra money they make on top of that, they will take as a dividend, okay, profits. And it actually allows them to avoid certain taxes, the so-called FICA taxes, which amount to about 15.3% on 92% of your income. And then once you hit around $137,000, most of it goes away. They don't charge it anymore, but you still have to pay, I think it's like 2.9% in Medicare and Obamacare and stuff like that, all right? So some of it never goes away, even when you earn a lot of money. So if you transition to an S Corp, you can bypass this on a large amount of your income. And this isn't anything sketchy or illegal. Look, even Joe Biden employs this tactic to dodge these taxes, okay? It's pretty ironic, actually, because he's dodging Obamacare taxes and he was Obama's VP. But anyway, whatever. It's not illegal. He's within his right to do it. And so, yeah, him and his wife avoided around $500,000 in taxes on $13.3 million in income across 2 tax years, all right, by electing to be taxed as an S Corp. I can't believe I'm defending Joe Biden. I mean, I'm really not the biggest fan of Joe Biden. If you see my Joe Biden tax plan video, I heavily criticize him. But in this case, I feel I do have to defend the guy because it's within his legal right to do it, all right? He's doing nothing wrong. But anyway, that's the situation with S Corp. New York City does not recognize S Corp, okay? So if you're within the 5 boroughs of the Bronx, Manhattan, Queens, and Staten Island, okay, and Brooklyn, sorry, 5, all right? I didn't mean to forget you guys in Brooklyn. But if you're within the 5 boroughs, New York City does not recognize S Corp, so you end up being taxed twice, and you have to pay an 8.85% corporation tax on your business profits as a company, and then you have to pay all of the personal taxes on your personal income as that income passes through to your personal tax return. We found this out the hard way. We did our taxes for 2019, and our accountant came and asked with a $19,000 tax bill. And we realized the reason was because we had elected to be taxed as an S Corp, and we'd set up an office in New York City, and we just listed that address as our main address, okay? We didn't really think that it would matter. But anyway, after we got this huge heart-stopping bill, all right, $19,000 on top of the like $16,000 I had to pay on my personal taxes, we talked with the accountant and she said, well, wait a minute, you're a New Jersey-based organization. Okay, so our company is actually based in New Jersey, our business address. And she was like, well, how much business do you actually do in the city and how much is out of state in New Jersey and in upstate New York and stuff? So we actually figured out that a lot of our business is done, for example, my business partner writes his scripts in New Jersey in a cafe near his house. I do all of my credit shifu and business shifu videos in upstate New York. So it's only a portion of our stuff that was done at our office in NYC, and we were able to bring that tax bill down to $5,000. But originally it was pretty crazy, and now we have to be really careful how much business we actually do in the city, just because we end up getting charged an extra 8.85% in taxes. All right, number 2, New York City has its own city income tax, and this ranges from 3 to 3.7%. Now that may not sound like a lot, but when you consider that you are paying federal taxes, state income taxes, the FICA taxes, Social Security, Medicare, all that stuff if you're not an S-Corp. And then on top of that, you're paying this New York City income tax as well of 3% or more. It really starts to add up, guys, okay? It really does. So just moving outside of the 5 boroughs of New York City, well, actually, there's also a Yonkers tax as well. But anyway, moving, out of the NYC area and just to a little bit further upstate or into New Jersey or whatever, you do not have to pay that New York City income tax, all right? As long as you're working outside of the city. If you live outside and you have to commute into the city to work, you still end up having to pay it. But as long as you live and work outside of the city, even in the vicinity, you can avoid it. Number 3, and now we're getting into New York State in general. New York State has really high state income taxes, ranging from 6.49% to 8.82%, okay, for your individual state income tax. And, when you compare that with a state with no income tax, no state income tax, you could really save a lot of money by moving elsewhere. Now, I'll give you examples of exactly how much you'd save later in the video, so do stick around with that. But I did have a friend who, because of this very reason, moved out of New York State all the way to Seattle, Washington. So Mike Chen, who's a YouTuber who some of you might know, okay, he's quite a bit bigger than me. He's got several million subscribers across several channels. And we actually worked together at a Chinese American TV station, a while back, about 5 or 6 years ago in New York City. He started YouTube first, spun off his own company. I started a little bit later. But anyway, he moved out of New York precisely for this reason. He moved all the way to Seattle. Here, check this out.
New York, if you don't know, has incredibly high state taxes. It also has high city taxes, so you end up paying a lot more every single year just for living in the state. And because I'm gone basically 150 days to 200 days a year, I'm not there enough to make the taxes worth it. I love New York. Obviously, I've been there, like I said, most of my adult life. I love the food, I love the culture, I love the fast pace of it, but it's just so much more economical for me to be here in this state with no income tax.
And I believe he saved a huge amount of money by doing that. And we'll look at some examples of how much you can save a little bit later in the video. But now, number 4 is the property taxes, okay? New York State has pretty high property taxes. It depends on which county and which town you're in, but they are pretty high. So this house that we're in now costs about $240,000, which is really cheap by national standards. But I am paying $7,000 a year in property taxes, which ends up at about, I think it's around 2.8%, which is really high, okay? Really high in terms of property taxes. So that would be another reason why it would be beneficial to move to a lower tax state, and why New York actually is the highest tax burden state in the nation when you consider all of the taxes added together, all right? Now, let's look at a few examples of what would happen if you moved from New York City up to New York State and then even to a state with no income tax at all. So first of all, let's have a look at this tax calculator for someone earning $200,000 in New York City. I'm using $200,000 because that's roughly how much I expect to earn this year. But you could try this out with your own income as well and see what it spits out. But you would pay a total of $60,000 in taxes in New York City, and that means you take home $140,000 of your $200,000. Now, where I live in upstate New York, I'm not going to give you the exact town, but it's in upstate New York, you would pay around $52,000 in taxes and take home $147,000. So you can see I've saved $7,000 just by leaving New York City. Actually, my taxes would be quite a bit lower than this because I'm an S Corp and I have the various deductions like that and stuff. But actually the amount I'd save, the state income taxes, I think would be the same. It would still be a $7,000 saving. So you can still see the kind of money I'm saving just by not locating in New York City. And then if you moved over to Seattle, Washington, earning $200,000 a year, you would pay just over $41,000 in taxes and take home $158,000. So basically, I saved $7,000 by leaving New York City. I'd save another $10,000 by leaving the state, which is a total saving of $17,000. Now let's do that again, but with $2 million in income instead of $200,000. So in New York City, you lose almost half your income to taxes. Look, it's just over $1 million in take-home pay. In New York State, you would pay $855,000 in taxes. So that's take-home pay of $1,144,000, which is about 42.5% in taxes, thereabouts. And then in Seattle, Washington, you pay $722,000 and you take home $1,277,000. So it's about 36% that you'd pay in an effective tax rate. So you can see at $2 million, it's a really, really big saving, $120,000 about you would save by moving from New York State over to Seattle, Washington, all right? And even more if you're moving from New York City to Seattle. Now, would I do this? Would I leave New York State for the tax benefits? Well, at the moment, no, because I'm only saving about $10,000, okay? And when I weigh up, do I want to leave? I haven't got any family in the US. Do I want to leave the place where all my friends are, okay? The reason I moved to this area was because several of my friends moved out of New York City and they moved to this area in upstate New York. So I know a lot of people here. Our kids are going to school here and stuff. So, to leave here, just to save $10,000 a year really wouldn't be worth it for me. But as my income grows and, I am hoping to hit that 2 million mark in a few years, the thought of saving $120,000, which is $10,000 extra income per month by leaving the state and going somewhere that's a no income tax state, it is really tempting, guys, I must admit. But then the problem for me would be, where do you move to, okay? When people leave New York, and they go somewhere to get the tax benefits, typically they go to Florida, okay, which is a zero income tax state, okay? But, there's nowhere really close to New York City. I don't want to move all the way to Florida where I know no one, all right? So that's really the big problem. If you're in LA, you can move to Las Vegas, Nevada, and you get zero income tax, and you're still only 4 hours away from Los Angeles, just like Graham Stephan was saying in his video. But for me, I would have to move all the way down to Florida. I guess I could move to Tennessee as well. Nashville would be pretty cool, right? I do love country music, but that's still pretty far away, okay? So there is no close by option. So it gets a bit more complicated when you're talking about doing this, in New York State, all right? So personally for me, I don't know, actually. I may end up moving in the future, but I would probably still have a lot of ties to New York, and it would be a kind of annoying situation where I'd say move to Florida, but, I'd still be flying up to New York State regularly because, my friends are here and my kids, there's a school, a boarding school that we want them to go to quite close to where we live here and stuff. And I've got business here as well. And I'm actually starting up some new business ventures here, which we'll probably tell you about in the not too distant future on this channel. So for me, it's a lot more difficult. And personally, I think I'm going to cross that bridge when I come to it. All right, guys, I know this has been a little bit of a long video, but pretty cool discussion all the same. Do go and check out Graham Stephan's video, Kevin's video, etc. I'll put them on the end of this. And if you want 2 free stocks for signing up for a brokerage account with Webull, they have that deal going on again until October 15th. So if you do want to take part in that, get 2 free stocks valued up to $1,600. Luck of the draw what you get. Click below for that deal. All right, guys, please subscribe if you're new. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.